Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today I'm with Zoe, an incoming freshman at Princeton University, where I got from. And then Zoe's wearing Stanford because I'm going to Stanford next year. And this video is part 2 to our Q&A from Bullseye Admissions, where a lot of Bullseye students and people following Bullseye ask questions about the college application and admissions process. So this is going to be question 10 to 17. We have some very juicy tea to spill about what college admissions officers are looking for, to maybe you should quit things earlier in high school so that you can actually stand out. Stuff like that. So keep watching if you're interested. And if you want to watch the first part of the video, go to Zoe's channel.
Our next question is, what studying tips do you have to get a good GPA or SAT or ACT score?
Ooh. All right, study tips for a good GPA. I would say focus on studying for what matters. So I see a lot of my friends get bogged down with little assignments that might not be worth that many points, and then they would really procrastinate the major tests that they have coming up. So know what's going to count for a bigger portion of your grade and put most of your energy there. When you make study plans for big tests, make sure that you follow any study guide that your teacher provides you, because those outline almost perfectly what they're going to put on the test. So make sure that you literally study every single point that they put on that study guide, and just make a checklist of things that you want to go over before the test to ace the test. Always go in with the mentality that you want to ace the test. And even if you don't reach that goal, you'll end up going just a little below, and that will probably be an A or a really good grade. So just make that checklist for what you need to study to ace the test, and then make sure that you go through that entire checklist before the test. SAT or SAT, I think standardized tests really just test your ability to understand the test. So the best way to understand a test is to get a lot of exposure to it. So take like as many practice tests as you can. They are available online, and just do them, and then do it with a timer. That's really, really important. Simulate like the real testing environment. Have a quiet space, clear your desk, no phones, no notifications, and just time yourself. And then at the end of it, check all of your answers and see if there's like a pattern with the types of questions that you're getting wrong, and then really try to figure out what that type of question is trying to get you to answer. And if you just understand the pattern of the SAT or the ACT, you will end up doing great.
Yeah. As far as like getting a good GPA goes, I totally agree. I'm a big fan of the work smarter, not harder mentality. So that definitely applied to my studying. I actually didn't end up studying a ton in high school for tests. What I do is I'd like parse out the workload and what I needed to look over the week of the exam. So on Monday, I'd start like 20 or 30 minutes. Tuesday would be around the same time, and then I'd hype it up like each preceding day before the test. I think looking over study guides, I'm a big fan of like review videos on YouTube, so that was a big studying thing for me. This happened more the night before the test, if I'm going to be honest. That was more of a last minute effort. But I think definitely just like figuring out what you're going to need to know and scheduling out your time to make sure you're going to be able to fit in the study time that you're going to need to get that good grade is really important. I know study groups work for a lot of people, not so much for me and my friend groups, but I know that's really helpful for a lot of other kids. And yeah, I just think really prioritizing assignments like Iris brought up. I know that if I had a homework assignment that was only worth like 1 or 2 points for the night, it was definitely the last thing I would do that day versus like studying for a big exam. So I think, scheduling blocks of time to do your work and make sure everything gets done, and then prioritizing assignments and different work is really important. As far as standardized testing goes, I actually just made a video about SAT prep, so go check that out. But also, like Iris brought up, practice tests were super helpful for me. I think it's really great if you can look over, like I would just text a teacher if I didn't know the answer to a problem or something after I looked at the answer and wasn't able to figure it out or anything. But I think practice tests are an invaluable resource. They're free online everywhere. So go check those out, just print it, simulate those study conditions, give yourself that 3-minute bathroom break, 5-minute snack break, just make your conditions feel as real as possible. Coaches always say, practice how you want to perform. And I think the same is true of standardized testing. You really just need to simulate conditions in as real a way as possible so that when it comes to that test day and you have to sit down at 8 a.m. and take a 4-hour long test, that you've gotten used to it, you're ready, and that you know and feel confident. So yeah, that would be my SAT, ACT advice. So our next question
is, I really want to go to UPenn and will do whatever necessary to push myself to get in. How can I increase my chances of acceptance through activities, awards, etc.?
I would say that just like as a general thing, increasing your chances of acceptance, we can't really necessarily tell you how to do that. I think it's more of a thing that you have to figure out in your own way, just because, you know, your application really depends on you. There is no single way to get into a school or to boost your chances besides getting an Olympic medal or winning International Math Olympiad or something. I think there are certain things you can do that definitely increase your chances, like pursuing extracurriculars that matter to you, that contribute to that theme or narrative of your application, doing well in standardized testing and in school, pursuing a rigorous course load, writing really compelling essays. But I don't really know how to advise you on how to increase your chances without knowing you personally. I think each person's application is very unique to them, as it should be. So I think just really pursuing the things that matter to you, doing extracurriculars you really care about, and honestly, just like not directing your application to get into a school. Colleges really like to see a unique path of each applicant. Like we talked about earlier, they're looking for you to fill a certain niche. So just do your best to figure out what matters to you, what you like to do, and then pursue that with everything you have.
And I think with the idea of how can I get into UPenn, that's very school specific. And a good saying that I've heard is you always get into someone else's dream school.
Woo!
To guess what that 1 or 2 admissions officer at a specific school will feel the day they read your application and just how they are as people. Like, the application process is subjective. You're working with other human beings. So while you can increase your chances, just know that you will probably go to another great school even if you don't get into UPenn. But with that out of the way, I think, yeah, just with increasing your chances, I think always overshoot. So make yourself an overqualified applicant for UPenn. Just try to be like the top 1% of the accepted UPenn applicant pool. And that might be through winning an international math competition or something, depending on where you are in your high school career. You're already pretty late into the game. And then just make yourself stand out as much as possible. I think pursuing passion projects is a good idea. I made a YouTube on that. You can check it out. Just pursuing a project that's unique to your personal experiences will really help you stand out. And also for UPenn, I know they care a lot about the schools specifically. So make sure you apply ED if that's really your top choice school. And they have a supplemental essay. Why are you a good fit with UPenn? So make sure you do enough on the school and mesh your interests with UPenn's offering.
So our next question is, I'm worried that I'm at a disadvantage in the college application process because my school doesn't offer AP classes. What should I do?
You can always self-study for AP tests. I self-studied for 3 AP tests. And while I don't think it's as rigorous as taking a full-on AP course for an entire year, I think it still shows your sense of initiative and your willingness to learn, even on your own. And if you can do great on those AP exams, that really shows that you have that academic ability to succeed in a top college. So if you don't have AP courses at your school, self-study the subjects that you're interested in, and you can still sign up for those exams and take them in May.
The other thing I'd say that we kind of brought up earlier is colleges do view your accomplishments and what classes you took in the context of your high school. So if your school doesn't offer APs, like we said earlier, they're not going to expect you to necessarily take any. What is important is to show that you pursue the most rigorous or close to the most rigorous course load that your high school has to offer. So if they have IBs, honors classes, advanced placement, college credit, any of those, I would pursue as many of those as you can, especially those that are going to be aligned with your intended major or your academic interests, because that's what colleges really look for when they're viewing your application, is that you pursued difficult courses in areas that challenge you and that interest you. So that would be a big tip as far as classes go.
Awesome. The next question is, should I take the ACT or SAT? Which one is easier? Did you take one or both?
I took both. I don't think one is necessarily easier than the other. I think you should definitely just play to your strengths. I took both just because when I took practice tests, my scores were similar in both. Like Iris brought up, I wanted to be at the most competitive level for the applicant pool for each of my schools. So that meant I really wanted to hit the 75th percentile for scores. And I noticed my scores were already around that range when I started studying. So I just kind of decided I'd do both, kind of verify the other by taking the other. So that was my mentality about it. I'd just suggest taking a practice test in each and seeing which you score higher on at the start, because the least studying as possible for standardized testing is going to be the best for you and allow you to pursue things you really care about. Unless you really care about the SAT, then great for you. But I think just in general, figuring out what is your strength and then playing to it is really important. Like I know the ACT has a science section and the SAT doesn't. The ACT is quite a bit more faster paced than the SAT. So if you like to take it slow and think a little more about each question, if you don't like science, then go for the SAT. If you love science and if you take tests very quickly, you're always the first one in your class to finish, go for the ACT.
I think Zoe pretty much summed it up perfectly. Just take practice tests for both, see if there's one that you perform stronger on, and build on that one.
The next question is, what tips do you have for a student with below average stats?
Yeah, so below average stats definitely shouldn't be a hindrance to your college acceptances. If you do have below average stats, that just means you have to have above average extracurriculars or teacher recommendations or coursework and other factors of your application. So definitely just strengthen your extracurriculars in as many ways as you can. Build great relationships with your teachers, because oftentimes stats are just a testament to your academic abilities, and your teachers also can give great testimonials to your strengths as a student. So if you can build great relationships with them and let them know that you're academically capable and they can vouch for you in that letter of recommendation, then I think you'll be good to go.
And then I think the other thing, a lot of people that I talk to who are like really high achieving students are like, my stats are below average. I only have like a 1420. Like, I think it's just important to recognize, as long as you're in that median range for a school, stats don't matter much. So the difference between a 1460 and a 1510 isn't huge. If you're in the 1400 range or even the 1300 range, you're not really at that big of a disadvantage. Besides that, like Iris brought up, I don't necessarily think that any one aspect of your application can compensate for another one, but I think doing your best to do what's in your control, right? Increasing extracurriculars, writing really powerful essays, explaining your background, your context, your narrative in a really compelling way, and being able to connect with an admissions officer, prepping for interviews, all that kind of stuff can really boost your chances of acceptance, and is really important if you want a shot at these top colleges. So even if you don't have a 1600 or in the 1500s or even the 1400s, I don't think that disqualifies you in terms of having a chance. I have a friend who got a 1280 on their SAT and was accepted to Brown, Princeton, Penn, and like amazing schools. So I definitely just, it's an individual basis. If you can really show that you're a unique and special person, that you're worthy of admission, you'll get admitted. So yeah.
Yeah, great tips. What were 3 determining factors in your application?
Ooh, I think the biggest one for me was probably my like community building theme in my application. I worked a lot with different local organizations, nonprofits, with clubs at my school to work with my community and really just work with young women and different groups and populations within my town, just to make our place, make it a better place. Whether that was like environmental initiatives, closing gender gaps in STEAM, working with disadvantaged young women to help them, teach them exercise and self-confidence and all these cool skills. So that was probably the biggest thing. I think the second biggest part of my application was definitely my essays. I talked a lot about in my essays about different involvements, but also kind of how I was the product of where I grew up. So I talked a lot about my Jewish community, the work I did locally, different initiatives I was a part of, why they mattered to me, why I grew as a result of being a part of them. And then third, probably like stats, just being honest. I don't think they're a huge deal in the application process, but I think just because I was at a pretty high threshold and I looked super qualified, like Iris brought up earlier, I think making yourself look overqualified for a school is always going to help. So I think stats were probably a pretty big factor for me, but they might not necessarily be for another kid.
Yeah, I think mine are really similar to Zoe's. I actually got a letter from my Stanford admissions officer and a short note from my USC admissions officer. And from my Stanford admissions officer, she wrote to me about my extracurricular involvement with economics and my study abroad experience. So I guess those extracurriculars, which I did highlight in my application, really stood out to her. She also mentioned that my essays were a joy to read, and she felt like she just wanted to hang on to the words, I guess. So I guess having compelling essays and that narrative is really important and helps you connect with that admissions officer. So that would be the second thing. And then the third factor, my USC admissions officer highlighted more on, which was my academic abilities. And I think that showed through the fact that I took more AP classes than other people in my class by like self-studying for exams. And I guess I also had pretty high standardized test scores.
Yeah. And then shameless plug for Iris's video. She posted a video about reading her admissions officer's notes, so go check that out, folks. Our next question is, what advice do you have for underclassmen who are preparing for the college application process?
Okay, number one, go read Cal Newport's How to Be a High School Superstar. I read that book before my senior year, and literally when I finished it, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I read this like my freshman year or even before freshman year of high school. He really talks about how you can stand out in the college application process without putting in like that much work, you know, like without losing sleep, burning yourself out, all of that. So go read that book. We'll probably link it in just like an Amazon link in the description so you can find it. Otherwise,
Sponsor us. I said sponsor us.
honestly, that book has like everything. That's what I'm gonna tell you. Just read that book.
I love it. My tips would probably be like, one, pursue things you really care about, just because I think admissions officers can kind of see through BS. And if you pursue things you care about, regardless of the outcome, whether you're accepted or rejected, at least you spent 4 years of your life doing things that you really enjoyed and that mattered to you. So yeah, that would be my first tip. Second, I'd say like, work smart, not hard. I'm just gonna repeat myself this whole video. I think definitely like prioritizing different things that are important to you, recognizing what needs to be get done, setting a schedule for yourself, making a timeline in terms of college applications, extracurriculars, and really just prioritizing different things in your life is super important. And I think a lot of people kind of neglect to do that. But yeah, that's kind of all the tips I have.
I think you should make a 4-year plan with all the classes that you want to take throughout high school. And also, if you don't like something, quit it as soon as possible. I think my biggest regret is not quitting things I didn't like clubs or classes that I didn't like earlier. For example, I was in band for 3 years and I quit during my junior year because I couldn't take it anymore. But honestly, I wish I could go back and just tell myself during like freshman or sophomore year that you don't have to do band to pursue music. There's so many other ways to pursue something you like. And just because you joined it doesn't mean you have to continue. The last question we have is, during the app process, what is the most important takeaway you have to share with people?
Ooh. I think a big part of it for me, and what I definitely like tell people going into it, is that it's an amazing opportunity for reflection and introspection. Just like looking back at your whole life, recognizing what's been important to you, what shaped you as a person. I think a lot of people just view it as kind of a medium of getting into like top schools, but it's really more than that. Like, you should really use this time that you have. You have 4 or 5 months. Don't make it feel awful and just excruciatingly painful. Really take those moments when you're writing your essays, when you're looking over applications, when you're in your interviews and prepping for them, to really look back at your experiences and recognize like the life that you've had and how you've grown as a result of these backgrounds and narratives that you're talking about and all that stuff. And I think at the end of the day, the results that you get are the results that you're meant to. Like Iris brought up, we had kind of an interesting story with our Princeton and Stanford applications, and I really like looking back at it. I don't think either of us can imagine a better place for ourselves. I think what was meant to happen really did happen. So yeah, just have a little faith and let go, take the time, and just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, like Zoe said, the application process is truly a growth process. I think it's really similar to real life, actually, because even when you're searching for a job, the process is very subjective, and there's a lot of human decisions involved, and factors out of your control. So it really is like a sample for real life, I think. And throughout the process, I found myself just subconsciously comparing myself and also like my college results with other people, especially earlier on in the process when I felt like I was getting rejected from schools when like other people were getting into their or application schools, and I was just like really down about that. And I think just like in real life, everybody is on their own unique path, and it's really futile to just compare yourself to other people. And it's definitely hard. Like you can consciously know that comparing yourself to other people is useless, but you can still be doing it like subconsciously. So it's really just like a practice of experiencing that for yourself and trying to work at getting rid of that notion or like feeling inside.
That
Yeah.
was beautiful, Iris.
Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it was helpful in helping you gain more clarity around the college application process. If you're still stressed out about anything or have concerns or questions, make sure you leave them in the comments below and we'll try to make some videos about it. And if you haven't already, go check out Zoe's channel. She makes awesome videos about college apps. She has read her Princeton essays. She has an amazing college decision reaction video. She talks about SAT prep, all the good content out there. So make sure you subscribe to her if you haven't already. And of course, subscribe to this channel if you want more college apps related content. And we'll see you next time.
That's so awkward. I hate doing intros and conclusions.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Because
We swapped.
It's
I actually got rejected from Stanford. I'll be going to Princeton.
okay. The print is better anyway. Do you know what you're?
Aw.